Island Podfather. My name is Gerry Ferretti. Many of you know me, many of you don't. Hopefully we'll get this out there where all of you know me. Why the Podfather? Well, I'm a father. And when I was thinking of a name for my podcast, I decided that being Italian and being a father and loving our country. And what are the first words of The Godfather? I love America. It's also got a film connotation. I'm a big film guy, filmmaker, actor, musician. So that's what I wanted to do. And a lot of different things we can talk about on the podcast. This is just going to be my introduction. It's not really an official podcast, but it is, in essence. See how I put that in there? That's the name of one of my films. In essence, it is a podcast. I'm going to put it out on all the different formats so you'll be able to hear it. Every place that you can hear podcasts, you can look it up. It's going to be listed under the Long Island Podfather, Gerry Ferretti. I'm still figuring out all the different ways that, this gets listed because this is all new to me. But I have a lot of things to say, as many of you know. Once I get talking, there's no shutting me up. But I am going to keep these podcasts pretty short. So they're going to be weekly, but there's also going to be pop-up podcasts. I'll be on the road, different places I travel, whether it's film festivals. I'll always have something to add. And also be sure to catch my daughters. They're going to be doing their own podcast, Following the Ferrettis. That's with my two daughters, Gina Marie and Erica. That's actually going to get started next week while they're down in Key West. So, little ratings competition between the two podcasts maybe, but I think we know who's going to win. They are. But that's okay. Follow them. Follow them on Instagram and Facebook and every place you can. They already have a ton of followers. But what are we going to talk about here? We're going to talk about films. We're going to talk about the world. We're going to talk about everything. I'm going to have guests on. We're going to have people calling in. Sean McGilvery is dying to join me. I don't know if that's a good idea. Basically, I want this to be a positive experience for everybody. I want it to be something where people will gain something from it, where there's insight and learning. I think it's important that we learn from each other, and this medium that we have around us, this ability to project our thoughts in a communicative way that's not hostile. It all started with Nobody's Talking Politics, which was designed to bring people together. And it was a lot of fun. I would bring different people from different parties and different political opinions together into a room, and we would have discussions. And viewers started to tell me that they wanted to see more hostility. And entertainment has become very hostile. It's become very angry. Entertainment used to be more, I guess we'll say, wholesome. So I'm looking to bring back that type of mentality along with a good sense of humor, and we all have to have that. So throw back to the past where things were more enjoyable. Music wasn't so angry. Movies and television wasn't so angry. I scroll a lot of times through Netflix and television at night trying to figure out something to watch, and it's very difficult because there's nothing really pleasant. There's nothing really fun. We're a generation that kind of makes fun of the old ways. I have friends of mine that look back on the old variety shows and talk shows and sort of make fun of it, like it was cheesy, but it was good, clean fun. It was innocent, good, clean fun. And there's a place for everything. There's a place for a good violent movie. A good I'm a big fan of The Godfather, obviously, and that's a relatively violent film, but it was the violence was a means by which to tell a story. The violence wasn't the story. I made the film The Mark as a throwback to the old film noir, the Bogart era films where there was this love triangle, but I wanted it to be believable. I wanted you to watch it and think, this could take place. This is a film that you could imagine actually happening. Because more and more movies have become something that we can't even if you really think about it, you go, this couldn't happen. Now, I'm fine with that with the super spy or with the superheroes, but movies themselves have become far-fetched. The characters aren't as believable. I want to talk about the filmmaking industry and how it has changed, and how when we want to create something, like as a screenwriter, we're faced with the dilemma of telling our story or altering our story to meet what the industry is calling for. So you walk that fine line of creating your art or distorting your art to sell it. And I think this has always been something, you write a song and it's got to be, like Billy Joel said, you got to cut it down to 305. Many of you know I run the New York Long Island Film Festival, and the film festivals themselves have changed because there's less room for feature films. If you make a feature film, and I'll get into all of this in future podcasts, but short films are the way to go, but yet when you make a short film, you're constantly cutting and cutting and cutting. I made a short film that was 45 minutes long. I ended up getting it down to 10 minutes and 45 seconds, and then it started to get into festivals. But there was a lot of good moments in that longer film that people just don't have the patience to sit through anymore. And it's why this podcast, sitting here at 8 minutes, is probably halfway done. Because you want to create an audience, and there's so much content out in the world that if you just keep talking, you're going to lose your audience. So real quick, I want to get to what a couple of announcements that I have that I'm very excited about. So I decided that I wanted to write the sequel to the Mark II, because I've always envisioned it as the Mark I, the Mark II, the Mark III, the Mark IV, sort of like the old Lincoln cars. And so I sat down and said, I have a great idea for the Mark II, and I started to write it as a screenplay. Being an independent filmmaker with a low budget, I said, I don't really have the budget to do the things that I want to write here. So unless I sell this to Hollywood, I'm going to be making a film that I have to cut corners. So, what's the logical conclusion? Write a book. So as I started to write the Mark II as a book, I realized, well, this is another thing I have to rethink, because how can there be a Mark II book if there's no Mark I book? And I wasn't sure if I had it in me, to be honest with you. I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't know if I could write 180, 200 pages of a novel, at least, minimum 40,000 words. But I did have the story. So I said, I can do this. We learn something new by taking on something new. So don't be afraid. Try it. By the end of December was my goal to have the Mark, the novel, written. And I did it. I did it before. I actually finished it in the beginning of December, and now I'm just fine-tuning the final draft. I want people to read the book. So I think, maybe I'm wrong, but everybody's going to this self-publishing mentality, which is great. We're creating another industry. We're creating these self-publishers that are making money, but where are these books going? Are there still publishers out there? I have a friend of mine who wrote a book and said, yeah, but that's the way of the dinosaur. Nobody does that anymore because you can't get there. Well, maybe you can, and maybe we give up too soon. So I'm going to be in the market for a publisher to publish the Mark and the series of books, the Mark II, the Mark III. And then maybe Hollywood will revisit my film and make this movie. So if you know anybody out there in the publishing industry, send them my way. It's a great story. I think it's a well-written book. It is my first, but it is going to be the first of many. Now that brings me to my next announcement, which is that I'm working on a new film, a brand new film, brand new concept, and it is a feature film, but it's written in 4 episodes. And I find myself watching a lot of these, episodic things where it goes 10 episodes, and by the end of the 10 episodes, I find myself saying, they could have done this in a 3-hour movie, maybe a 2-hour movie. So this is written in a way where it's 3 episodes followed by the 4th and final episode, but if you wanted to drop that 3rd episode and put 2 or 3 seasons between there and the final episode, you could. So it's written as a proof of concept, basically. Could be a series, or it could be these 4 segments put together to make a film. We're going to be filming at least the first part of this spring. I'm putting my crew together as we speak, or as I speak, as you listen, hopefully. And I'm very excited about it. I'm going to be putting out a GoFundMe to raise money for it. I've already raised some funds for it. I am ready to go with the first segment of this. But again, I will be talking in future podcasts about what it's about, what inspired it, where it came from. I'll be getting a lot of the local talent, and I'm working on bringing in a very special actor that some of you may have heard of. I just want to say, before I end this first episode, that, look, this is something brand new for me. And what is it that stops most people from doing the things that they want to do? Fear. So when you let fear interfere with what you want to do, especially based on criticism of others who aren't doing it, that doesn't make any sense. So I basically said, I know coming out here and doing this, just like making a film, there are going to be people that criticize. You make a movie, and there's a good chance that half the people that see it aren't going to like it. But half the people that see it are going to like it. And I think what we have to do as a society is focus on that positive aspect of every single thing that we're doing. Focus on the task at hand, and know that if you're doing something that brings good into the world, whether it's getting actors working, letting creativity flow, then you're doing something good. If you're making music, some people are going to like it, and some people aren't going to like it. Same way, I have things that I like and things that I don't like, but I always appreciate the person who gets out there and does it. So that's what this podcast is going to be about, all of these different things, and getting out there and doing it, encouraging everybody else to do it, and raising the waters to elevate everybody. And that's the concept behind every film that I make, every musical project that I do. I want everybody to grow. When we do the film festival, that's the purpose behind the festival. Everybody who comes to the festival, I want to see them interact, collaborate, and if everybody can elevate to a higher plane in their craft, then we're all doing great. So with that, I want to say thank you for tuning in, and watch for future episodes. Look for the Long Island Podfather. I will be posting information on where to find me as soon as I figure it out, because once I post this first episode, I will be then delving into the system and looking for ways to promote, which is not my strong suit. It's not my forte. So this will be a work in progress. But you'll be seeing more of the Long Island Podfather. And thank you again for tuning in, and good night.